this is where splitting the attributes is going to make a big difference. So, what do I mean by splitting the attributes? Well, we talked about gimbal lock before, how as you rotate objects, you can start to get these weird flips because you're rotating all three axes and then they start misaligning and it gets to be a pain. So, most new rigs will have a control like this. If you don't, I'll show you how to create your own. But what you want to do is create a setup where you can animate the attributes separately. So instead of animating the X, Y, and Z on one control, you animate them on separate controls. And on this rig, you actually have that. So if I select this control here, there is the gimbal cog. I'll turn this on. So what is the gimbal cog? The gimbal cog is a control that is basically made for avoiding gimbal lock. You actually have this in the shoulders as well, right here, because that's where you'll usually get gimbal. There's a gimbal control right there. And what you would do is, as the character starts flipping, you would split the attributes. So, for example, as the character is flipping, maybe I just use the gimbal cog to rotate the character in X. So just doing this flip here. Let's actually set those hips back into FK here, because that's going to be annoying to see the hips break every time. And let's set the gimbal off, or sorry, the follow line off. Okay, so I'll just animate this, rotating the character this way. And then I can use the other controls to animate the spin. And what I'm doing is I'm splitting them. So as I'm rotating this, you'll notice that I'm only using this, the Y-axis, and this is only using the X. And no matter which rotation and angle this character is in here, that's still just X. No matter what angle, because I'm not dealing with rotations over or on one thing. They're all separate. So you never get gimbal lock. The staff spin that I was showing earlier, where the staff spins in the air and she grabs it and does all that thing, I actually rigged that up so that I had 3 levels of controls. One to rotate the Y, one to rotate the X, one to rotate the Z, so that I would never get gimbal lock. It's a shame I closed it, because I could actually show the difference, but it basically simplifies your controls. Now you have to be careful. It'll take a little experimenting. So for example, I'm not quite a fan of how this is going to give me the results that I want. So maybe I would use the gimbal cog and maybe use that to do the Y. And then use this to do the X. Or sorry, was that the one I did already? No, yeah. So kind of flip it around just so I have more control over the directionality, because the main cog control is still going to be the movement forward. So I might want to have that be the main flip forward as well. So yeah, it just simplifies things. Now, if you don't have a gimbal control, how do you do this? Well, it's really just creating your own gimbal. So what do I mean by that? What I would end up doing, I would take time to do this, and I'll show it in the other scene here, because we'll be able to see it really clearly. Is I would create some NURBS circles, and I'll just position them at the hip, or something like that. If you want them lined up, just take the hip, take the NURB circle, go to constrain, parent, and turn off maintain offset and constrain it. This will lock it to that hip, give you that nice lined up motion, and then just delete the constraint. Now I'm just going to duplicate this a couple of times. So we'll have that, and then that. And I would just name these. So this is going to be Y rotation, X rotation, and Z rotation. And I would create the hierarchy here. So to do this, I would need all of these to work together. So let's just start parenting them. So I'm going to take my Z, let's do this. So we'll just start from inside out. So this one parented to this one parented to that one. This way the larger one is the main control, like so. And then I'll constrain the hips to the inner control. Boop, like that. So now we've got this set up here. So I can use my Z rotation here. This will only affect the Z. Now this is going to be my my X rotation. So this will only affect the X. And then this will only affect the Y. So now I can start getting into this more complex spinning motion, and none of my attributes ever bump up against each other. And I can just animate the flip. It's not going to be perfect. It'll still need some work to get it really refined, but I'm never going to get gimbal. I've split all of them onto their own different attributes, and I've created my own type of gimbal. Do you use multiple controls like this to change where the pivot of the body is? Yes. It depends on the way I'm animating it and what I need to pivot, but yes, I'll use something like this to change pivot points as well. So let's actually open up that scene again. Now I should have saved it with all the references built in. You can even hide the other rotation attributes. I personally wouldn't do that just in case, because it's nice to know if something's going wrong. That's the main thing, is as much as you can set that up, it's very easy to maybe accidentally like tweak it and go, oops, I just added some Y in there when it should have just been X. So I like to keep it visible, but it's really just keeping that simplicity, I guess you could say. Okay. Let's open this again. Are you also a rigger? No, not at all. I used to do some rigging way back in the day, but just kind of more of a hobby. And a lot of the stuff I've learned is just kind of self-taught different techniques and things like that in terms of rigging and modeling and that kind of stuff. So let's actually get the textures back in just because it looks better. Boop, there we go. So you can see this is the setup I made for the staff here. We've got the master control, the staff rotate X, staff rotate Z. I didn't need Y because of the way she's holding the staff. I just needed the other rotations. And you'll notice that the rotations of the staff are actually constrained, that's why they're green here, to these controls. Now if we look at the rotations of the staff on its own, so I actually animated this staff. I wonder if actually, let's try this. Okay, I'm going to turn off the constraint and see if we actually have the spin here. Yeah, so you can see for a little bit the staff is actually animated on its own and actually does spin. Okay, and if we look at the curves, let's just look at our rotation curves. This is what we get when I just animated the main control on its own, just like I would with the cog. So these are the rotations we got. Do these make any sense? So if you imagine, this is just a staff spinning like a clock. It's just spinning in one direction. It's not stopping and reversing. She's not hitting anything. It's a pain. Or let me put it this way. It's a simple motion, but look at the curves. They're bouncing around all over the place. The Y rotation, it has a bounce right here, and then it goes down and then up and then stops and then goes up again and stops. The Z, it's got this little dip right here. So does the X and Z. Like, why? There's no point to this. And as we go further, it's like, what the heck is it doing there? Why is there a bounce? Why is there... If you see a curve like this, it's a reversal in direction. So it's something going one way and then going back the other way. If she's spinning it in one direction, why is it reversing? There's no point. It makes no sense. This is gimbal lock. The attributes, the math to get the staff in position are no longer working correctly, and Maya is having to try to fight the gimbal in order to match the positions, which it is not doing. So it makes no sense. So let's look at, once we made that setup, let's look at the new curves we got. There. Is this an extreme case of gimbal lock? No, that was a mild case of gimbal lock. Gimbal lock can get much worse. But this is our new curves. Look at that. Rotate Z. So that's the main spinning action. It's going in one direction. It has no reversals. It's just like a clock. It's just spinning one direction. There you go. Rotate X. This is her spinning it forward and back, which means that there is a switch in direction. She goes forward and then back and forward and back. And look at that. We actually see those moments right there. There it goes back, then it goes forward, and then it goes back again, and then it goes forward and back. It's all there. Nice and clean. And look how simple those curves are compared to, let's select that main control again. So X and Z. Let's just look at the X. This is the new one. That's the old one. Look at that. Look at that beautiful mess. That makes no sense whatsoever. It's bouncing. It's literally bouncing. Let's look at the Z. Nice, clean, one direction curve versus this horror. That is the benefit of creating this gimbal system. So if you're animating a flip, if you're animating something spinning, anything like that, this system can help a lot. And literally, when I was doing this, it's probably still in the demo, I tried to animate it without this gimbal system because it's like, give it a try. Maybe it'll work. You never know. And I spent, I don't know how long trying to get this right, going frame by frame in some areas. You can see it right here. Frame by frame, trying to match that rotation and get it nice and clean. And it took me a long time. Now, I decided, you know, this is not going to work. So I set up the gimbal system. It took some time to do. But then I managed to get the whole thing polished in a fraction of the time. And not just animated, polished. As soon as I got the system up and working. So, can you see how it looks without the gimbal? I think so. If I find the main control here. Where? You need to unconstrain. Was it this control? I believe so. So let's take our blend here, turn it off. Not do it. Yeah, so you can see it right there. Here she smacks her chin with the staff. It's spinning, it changes, like it flips in the wrong direction there. It's like it's just bouncing and waving around. Here she drops it and then it reverses direction. So the first half of it, you can see where I keyed it. So look at this. It's all on ones right here. I had to go frame by frame to try and make this section work decently. Not polished, just to work. And then this is where I went, you know, this is not working and this is taking too much time. And as soon as we get to that point, it's like horror. So yeah, that is basically gimbal lock. We turn this back on. Now we get that nice spin. Done.